nothing. Get out of here.
Turn now to the story of Richard Jewell.
My name is Richard Jewell.
A bomb goes off. Hundreds are saved because one man did his job. So why did that man become the FBI's prime suspect? This isn't a mystery, it's a blueprint. A perfect example of what happens when the system needs a fall guy. When the pressure is on, authorities don't look for the most logical suspect. They look for the most convenient one. And on July 27, 1996, the most convenient man in Atlanta was a security guard named Richard Jewell. He was the hero who found the device, the guard who cleared the area, and that made him the perfect piece of cannon fodder. This is how it works. You're useful until you're not. You're a hero until the real professionals need someone to blame. Richard Jewell's story is the ultimate warning for every single person who wears a uniform but doesn't have a badge. To understand how Richard Jewell was set up, you have to see the environment. The 1996 Olympics, Centennial Park, a massive open venue packed with thousands of people. Security was a layered affair, federal agents at the top, local police in the middle, and at the very bottom, the contract security guards. They were the disposable layer, the warm bodies hired to watch a perimeter or check a bag. Richard Jewell was one of them. He took the job seriously, maybe too seriously for some people's taste. He was eager, he was thorough, and that made him stand out. He noticed an abandoned backpack under a bench. He didn't ignore it, he called it in. Then he started moving people back. He did everything right. The bomb detonated, but his actions saved countless lives. In that moment, he was the most effective part of the entire security apparatus.
They said they need me for a training film. No, they don't need you you're a suspect. Have you read the newspapers? Have you signed anything? Have you confessed anything?
And that was his first mistake. The hero narrative lasted about 72 hours, just long enough for the media to get their feel-good story and for the FBI to realize they had a massive problem. A bomb had gone off on their watch. They had no leads, no suspects, and a furious public demanding answers. An investigation under that kind of pressure isn't about finding truth, it's about finding a result. They needed a head to put on a spike, and they found one in Richard Jewell.
He turned around, went back over to them. A conversation took place where more or less they said it wasn't theirs. He came back.
Why him? The profile was easy to twist. He was a wannabe cop. He was overzealous. He liked the attention. A former boss who had a grudge called the FBI and gave them just enough innuendo to work with. They didn't see a hero, they saw a patsy.
I had identified myself as his lawyer, said I understood that they had him, and they denied that he was there.
A security guard was the ideal candidate. Low on the institutional ladder, without powerful friends, easy to break. The calculus was simple. The FBI's strategy was a masterclass in psychological manipulation. They didn't arrest him. They invited him in under false pretenses. They asked him to help them make a training video about heroism. They made him feel like he was still part of the team. Then, in the middle of it, they switched. They read him his Miranda rights as a formality for the role play. They interrogated him for hours, trying to trick him into a confession. They were betting on the fact that a security guard, someone who respected their authority, would be easy to intimidate. He was smart enough to ask for a lawyer, which immediately made him look guilty in their eyes. Then they went to his home with a search warrant and tore his life apart for the cameras. They weren't just investigating him. They were making a public spectacle of destroying him.
Spotlighted in a new book about Centennial Olympic Park bombing 23 years ago.
The media didn't just report the investigation. They became the FBI's amplifier. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution ran with the headline, "FBI suspects hero guard may have planted bomb." They turned speculation into fact. They painted Jewell as a loser, a failed law enforcement officer who craved the spotlight so much he would kill for it. News trucks surrounded his mother's apartment. Reporters camped on her lawn. They turned his life into a live-streamed witch hunt. This is the second phase of the cannon fodder process. Once the institution designates a target, the media provides the firing squad. They don't care about presumption of innocence. They care about the story. And a fallen hero, a security guard turned sinister bomber, was a hell of a story. The truth was irrelevant. Richard Jewell was no longer a person. He was content. For 88 days, Richard Jewell lived in a cage of suspicion. He was the most hated man in America, yet he had never been charged with a crime. Every face he saw on the street looked at him with fear or disgust. He was a prisoner in his own home, which had been violated and turned into a crime scene. His mother, Bobby, had to face the cameras and defend her son's life. Think about that. The man who saved lives was now watching his own mother beg for mercy on television. This is the human cost of being treated as expendable. The institution uses you and then discards discards you without a second thought. The FBI knew they had a weak case, but they pursued it anyway because the cost of being wrong wasn't theirs to bear. It was his. He was the asset they could afford to lose. The case against Jewell didn't fall apart because the FBI had a crisis of conscience. It fell apart because there was literally no evidence. The forensics didn't match. His background didn't fit. The entire theory was built on a hunch and a stereotype. The U.S. attorney finally had to admit they had nothing. They sent him a letter saying he was no longer a target. No parade, no press conference, just a quiet legal notice. The damage, however, was permanent. The real bomber, Eric Rudolph, wouldn't be caught for years. But the exoneration of Richard Jewell exposed the ugly truth. The system would rather destroy an innocent man than admit it failed. They sacrificed a security guard to protect their own reputation. It was a tactical decision, and for them, it was the right one. He was an acceptable loss. Jewell eventually sued media outlets and won settlements. The money bought him a house, but it couldn't buy back his name. He worked in law enforcement again, in a small town, but he was always the guy from the Olympics. He died young, at 44, from health problems undoubtedly compounded by the stress of those 88 days. And then finally, he was a hero again. Politicians praised him. The governor posthumously pardoned him. It's easy to honor a dead man. A dead man doesn't demand accountability. A dead man doesn't sue you. This is the final stage for cannon fodder. You're a problem when you're alive, and a symbol when you're gone. They can then use your memory to pretend they ever cared about you in the first place. It's the ultimate insult. So why does this happen? Why is the security guard the first name on the sacrificial list? It's about hierarchy. Police have unions. Federal agents have the full weight of the government behind them. Security guards have a contractor who will fire them to avoid a lawsuit. You're isolated. You lack institutional power. You're the easiest link to break. When something goes wrong, the investigation doesn't flow up the chain of command. It flows down. It flows to the person with the least protection. Richard Jewell's story isn't an anomaly. It's the logical endpoint of how security is viewed in this country. We are the necessary expense, the liability to be managed, the body to be thrown at the problem. And if the problem blows up, we're the ones who get buried in the aftermath. Richard Jewell did everything right. He was vigilant. He followed procedure. He saved lives. And for that, he was rewarded with the total destruction of his life. His story is the clearest warning you will ever get. The institutions you think you're serving will not protect you. They will use your dedication against you. They will interpret your competence as suspicion. They will offer you up to the wolves without a moment's hesitation. You are not a partner to them. You are a resource. And a resource, when contaminated, is disposed of. Remember that the next time you put on the uniform. You're not just taking on a job. You're accepting a risk that extends far beyond the post orders. You're signing up to be the perfect victim. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more guard guides, and be safe.